Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henrik Bick. I'm here with the Music Business Association. Happy to welcome you to the third of our 4 sessions for our Brand Summit 2020 Music for Good program. Thank you for being here today, and special thanks to G7 and Clio for putting on this program. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Jessica Abel from G7, who's going to introduce the first panel today and moderate the session as well. Take it away, Jessica.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. First, a big thank you to Music Biz and our partners at Clio Music. Again, I'm Jessica Abel, and I lead growth and development at G7 Entertainment Marketing. I want to start out by welcoming our panelists for this first part of our session. We have Butch Spyridon, President and CEO of Nashville Convention and Visitors Corp. We have Chris Cobb, owner of the Exit Inn, as well as co-founder and president of Music Venue Alliance Nashville, or MVAN. We have Lindsay L., talented singer, songwriter, and guitarist, who released her second studio album, Heart Theory, this past August. So thank you all for joining us. We're excited to kick off today's session. And Butch, we know you've got a lot going on today with the presidential debate, and you'll need to jump off early, so we're gonna just dive right in. We are here today to talk about independent music venues. After being closed since March, the situation is dire. In fact, 90% of independent music venues are at risk of closing in the next few months. These venues are important for so many reasons. Their cultural and economic impact is enormous. The National Independent Venue Association, or NIVA, was formed in March to not only save these venues, but to also help them thrive. Chris, as the owner of our beloved Exit Inn, you partnered with other venues in Nashville to join NIVA when it first formed, and then later co-founded MVAN. Talk to us about MVAN, the work you're doing, and how the partnership with NCVC for Music City Bandwidth came to be.
Thanks, Jess. I'd love to. Great to be here. Thanks for having me today. Good to see you, Lindsay and Butch. So Music Venue Alliance Nashville is a local organization for Nashville's independent music venues, of which we have 15 here in the city. And it was born out of NIVA, which is the National Independent Venue Association, that was started late March, early April because of the pandemic. So we realized a couple of months back that we really had to organize on the local level if we were going to be able to get through. And the impetus for starting the org locally was when Douglas Corner closed permanently. Nashville has lost one independent venue due to the pandemic, but we don't want to see any others go down. So as soon as that happened, we all got together and said, hey, we've just got to join forces and work together to make sure that all these places that are so important to the culture of our city are still here on the other side of this mess that we found ourselves in. So I think from there, pretty quickly, we were sitting in a meeting with Mayor Cooper that Butch had organized, because I think the mayor wanted to hear about some of the specific struggles that were facing the hospitality industry in the city. And so we were very thankful to have that opportunity to sit around the table. And really, it just turned into a brainstorming session, Butch, I believe. And at some point, you said, maybe we could do some streaming together and it would help everyone. I think, not to pass the buck, but yeah, he's okay. He's not stopping me. So
keep going.
All right. So that's how it went. And the next week, we're sitting in Butch's office, all the venues, sitting there with him and his team, really figuring it out. They had already figured it out, honestly. And they said, hey, what do you think? Does this work? And we said, absolutely, it works. And so that became very quickly. And I think 2 weeks later, we were launched. So unbelievable turnaround, which we had to have, because, at this point, Nashville's venues were right at the edge of the cliff. We had an average of 3.6 weeks at that point before everyone closed. That's an average. But we were at an average of 3.5 weeks before every venue was going to go under. We had a couple that were going to go under in 3 weeks, and we had a couple that were going to go under in 3 months, so on and so forth. And so, the Convention and Visitors Corporation stepped in and said that we think we have a solution. And that's Music City Bandwidth, 30 shows streamed from Nashville's 15 independent venues, over the numbers that I've seen is 120, but it's got to be more than that. Artists and musicians who've been paid to participate. We were able to bring our crew back, our staff back in the clubs to produce these events, and give fans and artists an opportunity to connect. So, unbelievable program. From the bottom of my heart, Exit In would not be open today if it hadn't happened, frankly. So, I don't know what more I can say than that.
No, that's incredible. And Butch, can you tell us why this was important for you to champion and what the impact of venues like Exit In has on tourism in Nashville?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I think Chris did a great job. And first thing I'd like to say, especially in keeping with the theme of this webinar, music's our brand and music's also our product. We're in that rare air where our brand and our product are really the same thing, what we sell. And we organized some meetings for the mayor, and my intention was to try to get some CARES Act money from him, and literally said, couldn't we use that? And that didn't go anywhere. And almost very fortuitously and kind of unbelievably, the state came forward with some CARES Act money that had to be used for marketing. And we immediately said, could we use this money to help the clubs? And we were told, no, you can't give money to a business. That's the federal government for anybody that wants to further their anger. The federal government has put more rules around the CARES Act to make it as unhelpful as possible while it goes to complete waste. So there's my political statement. But we figured out a way that we could make it a marketing campaign. It was really important to us that, one, we saved the venues, but two, we also paid the artists. That was part of the conversation. This was a chance to really leverage the dollars at a much needed point. And I think Chris called me out on it when we were with the mayor, and I've said it since, Broadway may be our beach or our photo op, but the small clubs are our soul and our ecosystem. And if we lose our soul or our ecosystem, we don't have squat. And so it really became a mission to prop up the clubs, prop up as many artists as we could, and get the word out. And to Chris's point, I still can't believe how quickly we put it together. And we're almost at the end of the second month of airing shows, and they've all been great. They've had great viewership globally. We are also taking donations while people are watching the shows. We have raised just under $10,000, and we'll divide that up among the clubs and hopefully the artists. So let me give a plug to anybody that is sitting here listening. You can go to visitmusiccity.com and follow our link on our homepage to Music City Bandwidth. You can buy a t-shirt or you can make a donation. Either way, 100% of the proceeds go back into the campaign and helping the artist and the club. So it's our brand, it's important. I'm so thankful it worked out, and it was a really special thing to watch everybody come together to knock down all the reasons why it wouldn't work and get it done. So thanks.
Yeah, that's incredible. And in addition to fans finding ways to support through the opportunities that you just listed, brands are also stepping up to the plate to support. And you guys had Jack Daniels as a sponsor for the Music City Bandwidth program. Can you talk to us a little bit about that partnership?
Sure. Jack Daniels is a year-round partner of ours. They're a major sponsor of New Year's Eve, but they're with us literally every day. We reached out to them. It's kind of funny. Liquor sales are through the roof during the pandemic, but that is the retail market, liquor stores. On-premise sales are way down. And Jack Daniels was real quick to realize the clubs are an important part of their ecosystem in selling, on-premise product. So I don't think it took them 15 minutes to come back with an answer and say, we're in, and wanted to be a part of it, care about the clubs, care about the artists, and they care about this city. We're as important to Jack Daniels, we being Nashville, as Lynchburg is. So they're smart, they're nimble, and they're unbelievable partners of us in the music industry. And we're grateful to them as well.
That's incredible. Lindsay, you have a show coming up next week from the Listening Room Cafe as part of the Music City Bandwidth program. Tell us a little bit about the experience of shooting that performance and what it felt like to be back on stage again.
Jessica, it was so amazing to be back on stage again. I mean, we've been doing a lot of virtual shows, from this very couch in my studio, in my house. And it was so incredible to actually be in a venue, sing through a PA system. I felt half normal again. I performed with Carly Pierce and Emily Shackleton, and I've been raised from the independent venues in Nashville. And just like Chris said, it was so heartbreaking to hear that Douglas Corner had to close. And so these venues are what make our city what it is. Like Butch said, it's the soul of Nashville. And, I've been, ever since I moved to town 10 years ago, I've been going to see bands and writers rounds and all of that. And so if I can do anything to give back to help keep these music venues alive, which are the heart and soul, the pulse of what makes Nashville what it is, I will be there every single time. It was, it felt so good to get back out on stage.
Oh, we're so glad. And, in thinking about the heart and soul of Nashville, the Ryman certainly comes to mind, and they have found a way to do some small socially distanced, have small socially distanced audiences, of course, with an opportunity for access for fans at home. It seems like this model could work for other venues. Do you collectively think, will we see more venues trying this approach?
I definitely think so. I mean, I'll let the guys speak to it as well. But I think right now we're just learning how to adapt. We're learning how to change and adapt to these times. And although we wish we could put on shows like 10 months ago, we can't. And so right now, if we can still continue to have shows and bring in fans and truly let them still share in the experience of getting to see music. I mean, music is so healing. And right now, I think we need music more than ever. And so it's as important to us as artists as it is to this town, as it is to Music City, as it is to all the fans hopping on there watching. I mean, it's the universal language that's going to bring us together and help us get through this time right now.
I want to echo what Lindsay was saying. First, on our website, you go to the homepage and it says music is the universal language. And
yeah, I didn't even know that. That's amazing, but
thank you. And when we're out talking to other people about Nashville, I always go to music makes people behave better. And it's just something about it, to Lindsay's point. And right now, behavior could not be any worse, or probably across the globe, but certainly across our country. So we need to get it back. And specifically, I know the amphitheater is working hard on I'll call it a pod system. We'd probably cut their capacity to about 2,700 from around 7,000, but they're trying to figure it out for outdoors. And I was talking to the arena yesterday, and they're looking at probably a 30% capacity setup so they can try to bring some music back. So everybody's focused on it, and it can happen soon enough, but I do think we're going to see more following the model of the Opry and the Ryman.
Awesome. Chris, anything to add?
Exodus was working on its seating chart this morning. The problem is in there when you measure 15 feet from the stage, you get to the soundboard. So that's our challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. We're also working on our outdoor plan. We've got a parking lot. So I think when it gets warm, we're going to do some of that. We've got to, right? It's what we do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got an email from Ron Bryce at 3rd and Lindsley right before we we went live, and he had gotten a check, I guess today, from us, and he was thanking us for that, but he was saying he's at 30% capacity, and he's struggling through to keep music playing and kind of get back to some normalcy. So I know that Third and Lindsley has opened back up as well.
Yep, as has Station Inn, and to your point, Butch, we talk every week, you know, all the venues, and I just want to underscore your point that music makes people behave better. Everybody's having really, it's a challenge and a struggle from a you know, ownership or an operating standpoint to figure it out, but the crowds are being great and the artists are being unbelievable. And every week we, you know, when we have our 10-minute conversation about reopenings as a group, all the feedback from the folks who are open is unbelievably positive about how everyone's you know, abiding by the rules because we all want it back so bad, right?
Do me a favor and push Jack Daniels when you open back up. I need to keep them happy.
Team effort.
Right.
It's on my counter at home. Does that help?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, in the spirit of, you know, looking at plans for ways that Exit In can reopen safely and use the parking lot outside, we have talked in the past about how quite a few of the venues that make up MVAN are now equipped to do live streaming, whereas before they were not. So this certainly feels like it would be another revenue stream for the venues and an opportunity even for the spaces to be used creatively and both for artists and brands to be able to get involved. Are you seeing more of those opportunities come up for these venues, or do you feel like that hasn't really caught on yet?
No, I think the opportunities are definitely coming, but I both, I think, you know, I think it's, we're very early on for live music to adopt streaming. You know, we're in the very early phases. So it's definitely still growing and changing, and everybody's trying to figure it out, how it best works. But long term, I don't think it's going anywhere personally. You know, I'm no expert, that's just me. I'm hopeful that we all now have a future ancillary revenue stream that didn't exist for us before. But yeah, in the short term, anyone who's, you know, I think it comes down to geographics at this point. And so if you have a space and you're geographically somewhere where there's a lot of artists, in Nashville, New York, LA, I definitely believe you have an opportunity to monetize your space in the digital world right now, because fans want music and artists want to connect with their fans. And unfortunately, the best way we have to do that right now is through a screen. So if you have a space that is suitable for that, or you can make it suitable for that, I think you can monetize it. I'd put a really nice one-pager together and I'd get it out there to every artist, manager, agent that you know, because I think everybody's on that side of the world, on the artist side, is really trying to figure out how to make it work, and we are too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope from G7's perspective, working with brands and really working at the intersection of music and brands, we definitely see it as an opportunity for our clients to get involved in using the spaces, whether it's, a branded live stream, different opportunities to capture content or just to host events. So it's something that we're having conversations with brands about, and it's something that we hope more brands will look to take advantage of, especially these next few months. Lindsay, many of the venues we're talking about, including Exit In, are considered a rite of passage for artists in their careers, and often there's some great stories tied to playing in those clubs in the early days and throughout an artist's career. What are some of the independent venues that have played a big role in your career?
Well, I have to say, I remember coming to the Exit In. The Exit In was one of the first venues that I ever went to in Nashville. I think I was seeing, who was I seeing? It was probably like a Cadillac 3 show or something way back when. And then I've just constantly grown up going to shows at the Exit Inn. Like I saw Post Malone play there with his dive bar tour, which was just insane. Like seeing Post with an acoustic guitar do a whole set. And then we've had so many different iterations of our band, from solo shows to we did this big CMA showcase right before the CMA Awards last year. And it's just been a venue that I've like played at every stage of my career. I remember going to the Exit and being like, I can't wait till I can pack this club out. So I've definitely grown up with Chris. I'm not just saying that because you're on here, but I've definitely grown up with the Exit In, and it's like, it just holds this near and dear place in my heart. As well as, you know, Carly Pierce and Emily Shackleton and I played at the Listening Room, and seeing the Listening Room move locations from, you know, being in Cumming Station to being downtown to now where they are at. It's just, it's incredible to grow up with these venues, and as our careers raise, their careers raise, and you know, they foster their own community. You know, I've seen Vince Gill play at the Station Inn so many times. That was another one of the first venues that I went to, and I was like, oh my gosh, Vince Gill's on stage. And then have played there with Charlie Worsham a few times. And so it is truly the thread work of this town. When people ask me, hey, what should I do? I'm going to Nashville. I always list all of these independent venues, because you're going to get to see shows that you wouldn't normally see. And there's just like a magic that happens in these small clubs that you don't find in a lot of towns. We are Music City, and we are known for these independent small venues. Even just a few months before lockdown, my band and I went to go see Theo Katzman from Wolfpack play at 3rd and Lindsley. And my band and I geeked out. We were like little kids behind the soundboard, like geeking out to how incredible this music is, because you just can't find these musical experiences in other towns the same you can as in Nashville. And it is all thanks to our independent music venues.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it sort of echoes what Butch was saying too, which is that, you know, these venues, they do drive tourism in Nashville. People come to Nashville specifically to visit and experience music inside these spaces. And so not only the cultural impact, but the economic impact on Nashville specifically is tremendous. And so it just, you know, it's why it's important. It's why we're all here. And Butch, it's why you guys have been able to do what you're doing in terms of really promoting the message and giving fans an opportunity to give back, and giving artists a stage, right, to get involved and perform.
Yeah, I would agree completely. And I really would like to make the point that, especially through the program that we put together in Bandwidth, but what the clubs represent is music of all genres. And, you know, gay, straight, black, white, brown, male, female, rock, country, R&B, hip hop. You know, that's what it should be about. And, you know, it's a really important part of the message that there's all kinds of great music in this town, and all kinds of great music at these clubs. And, you know, so too often we get caught up on one thing, and it's just important to embrace it all. And there's two kinds of music, good and bad. And we just need to go from there.
Yeah.
To underscore both of my esteemed colleague, panelist friends' last statements, that's what got me so excited about the Music City Bandwidth program, was the idea that, like what Lindsay was talking about the magic, and what Butch was talking about how unbelievably diverse the local scene really is. The idea that we could send that to London or Tokyo or Beijing or wherever else during the pandemic, when there's nothing else we can do, really gets me super excited. And I think that for me is where I see, you know, huge opportunity in the future when it comes to streaming. Is anybody anywhere in the world can look inside of the Station Inn and see Vince Gill. That's pretty phenomenal and amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hop here in a second. I've already stayed longer than I thought, but I'm enjoying hearing what Chris and Lindsay are saying. I was hell-bent on we were going to do this live, because we're a live music town. And I went kicking and screaming, but at the end of the day, to Chris's point, in order to really reach the rest of the world, we had to live tape them and put them out there so that the UK or Australia or anybody else could tune in at their appropriate time and watch it. And that was the right call. As much as I wanted live to tape worked out much better for everybody.
Yeah, well, Butch, thank you so much for your time today. We know you have a busy day ahead, so we appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Butch. Good luck.
Thanks.
Indeed.
You, Bush.
So Chris, as you know, we're all so eager to get back to live music, and it seems though that the impact that this has had on the industry has been so significant that certainly to get the machine running again, to get all of the infrastructure back in place, to actually be able to get things up and running again is going to be a significant task. Talk to us about what's going to need to happen to really get things up and running once we're safe to do so.
Well, it's a big engine and it's turned off. So I think getting it started back up is a huge undertaking. And Lindsay can probably speak to this better than I can, in fact. But touring's shut down globally, from the top, the festivals, all the way down to the station ends of the world. So all those people that make that happen are not working. A lot of them are out of jobs. So there's, it took us decades to get here in this realm of live entertainment. You turn it off and let it sit for 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, however long it's going to be. It's not just going to magically start back up.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Chris said. We were the first industry to sort of be shut down, and I think we're going to be one of the last ones to come back. We're honestly like a slow gear that takes time to get momentum again, to get going. I know, like Chris said, a lot of band members, crew members have had to find other jobs, so they're working at other places now. And so when things do get back, I mean, it's not only agents need to book shows 6-10 months ahead of time, but all of our band and crew members, we need to have enough work for them to be able to quit the jobs that they may have already gotten to supplement their income for right now. And so it's just going to take some time. I have full faith that it's going to happen. And, if we can all target whenever next year, spring, summer, fall next year, when we can hopefully see some of a change. The good thing is I think it'll slowly start to trickle back together. So we'll see shows come back in these smaller independent music venues and in clubs, and we can really start to work that angle a little bit more. Even if it's just virtual shows with no audience, then maybe it's a socially distanced audience, then maybe it's I don't know where it goes from there, but I think it'll just be a slow progression as we get back to normal. And then hopefully sometime late next year, we can get things going again. But the most important thing is just for us to be staying safe and, abiding by all of these social distance guidelines and practices, just so that we can make sure we're headed in the right direction and we're staying in the right direction and we don't have to take a step back.
Yeah, that's great. I think
Amen.
Yeah, that we stay moving forward and not backward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lindsay, you've been so busy, it seems like, over these past few months, finding lots of different opportunities to, be in front of fans. You had a new record come out. Congratulations, by the way, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But talk to us a little bit about how playing for a cause like Save Our Stages or Support Nashville Stages, Keep the Music Playing for the Music City Bandwidth program, how that's different. And I know you mentioned when we spoke before that you've really had to kind of change the way you approach your live performance to get used to the fact that there is no live audience in the room. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit what that's like for you.
Yeah, I mean, all of these virtual shows, you sort of need to envision all of the thousands of hearts and brains and bodies on the other side of the lens. But it is so special, like I said, to be able to perform in an actual venue. It feels like one step closer to normalcy. And yet, you know, we're all in this business because we love music so much. And I think that the underlying reason, even underneath that, is because we love all the good that music can bring. I mean, like we said, music is the universal language. I think that we are all here to inspire each other to be better humans and to spread love on this planet. And so whenever, as an artist with a platform, I can stand up on stage and be like, this is what I believe in, and this is why. And if it's to help keep music venues open that can continue to like make this message prosper, then I'm going to be there 100%. Independent music venues are the way that our music business survives. It cultivates, you know, new artists and A-list artists doing really cool things, like when Post did that. And it's just like it's part of the grease for the gears to work.
Yeah. And you're certainly doing your part and everything that you can to support independent music venues. And I know they're so appreciative of you and all the other artists who have really stepped up to help out during this time. I want to leave everyone just with some ideas, kind of recapping, Chris, all the different ways fans can get involved and support MVAN and the Music City Bandwidth Program and NIVA. And then also just some thoughts on what brands can be doing and what people like G7 can be talking to brand clients about and encouraging them to get involved in this program.
Yeah, great. We need to create more of these streaming programs. And I think we have an amazing opportunity to do so, especially in Nashville. We now have a lot of venues outfitted with the necessary equipment to stream, cameras, switchers, bandwidth, quite literally, all the things that we need to pipe high quality content out to the world. You know, but we need funding to get it off the ground. So I think there's endless opportunities in the digital space right now. And of course, when it comes to content, video is king. So I'm pretty bullish on the future of streaming from that perspective. As far as helping, unfortunately, we do need it. And music venues aren't accustomed to asking for help. We really prefer to serve. We prefer to just create a amazing circumstance for people to enjoy music and an artist to share their passions from the stage. And we just want to house that interaction. That's all we've ever done. And we have never needed help doing it. But if we don't get the help, we're not going to be there to serve our communities on the other side of this thing. So I'm so tired of asking for help, and I'm not good at it, but it's what we have to have at this time. And unfortunately, I'll give my quick, like Butch did, to be political for 2 seconds. You know, the federal government has not helped us, unfortunately, and we're running out of time. We're out of time now. So real quick calls to action. NIVA has an emergency relief fund. This is the national organization. You can go to saveourstages.com and donate there. Any independent music venue in the country can apply for funding from that fund, the NIVA's emergency relief fund. That fund raised over $2 million in the last week through the streaming festival that NIVA did, SOS Fest, which is unbelievable. But there's over $15 million in applications in for the fund currently. So we desperately need to raise more money for the fund. Locally in Nashville, if you want to donate to Nashville's 15 independent music venues, you can visit mvan.org, mvan.org, and make a donation there. MVAN, we started just to support the clubs, the venues. We keep 5% because we now have bills, and then 95% of every dollar that comes in goes to all of the 15 venues at the end of every month. So it's a literal pass through, and it's distributed to everyone. So if you want to help every independent venue in Nashville, it's really easy. Anything, $10 helps. Anything anyone can give.
Awesome, thank you. And Chris, I know it's not easy to ask for help, but I know so many people want to help and want to find those ways to support you guys. So thank you for leaving us with that. We did have one quick question come in that I want to take a moment to address. Let's see, Dana is wondering if you guys think that we'll adapt in ways such as using the sort of bubbles or the pods for indoor concerts as well as outdoor concerts. Is that something that you've heard discussed at all?
I saw some of that Flaming Lips video, if that's what Dana's talking about, where of course that band has performed in bubbles for a number of years, but then they had fans in bubbles or blow up, large inflatable balls or something. I don't see that happening in Exit In anytime soon. Pods, I'm not sure what's meant by that, but distance seating, yes, absolutely. Tables 6, 8, 10 feet apart with a party that came in together at that table. Those things are definitely happening now and going to continue to happen.
Awesome. Well, great. Chris, you also mentioned NIVA and the Save Our Stages Festival, which we're going to dig more into in the second part of this session today. So that's a great segue. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Lindsay, for being a part of today's conversation. We're so glad to be able to use this forum to shine a light on the amazing work that's being done to support the independent music venues in Nashville, and of course the additional work that still needs to be done. So thank you so much for your time. I do want to invite my friend and co-programmer, co-host, many things, Michael Kaufman from Clio Music, to jump in and say a few words before introducing our next panel. So thanks again to all of our participants today, and thank you for the attendees for tuning in. Michael, it's all you.
Oh, thanks, Jess, and really thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Lindsay, Chris, and Butch. A really great conversation. I'm Michael Kaufman from the Clio Awards, where I spearhead the Clio Music and Clio Cannabis programs. Both programs are recognizing creativity and marketing in those industries. In music, we recognize creative marketing in music marketing for artists, labels, et cetera, as well as for the use of music in things like commercials and trailers. You can certainly find out more by going to clios.com/music. We have a deadline of December 4th in our current program. If you'd like to learn more or submit your work, we would love to see a Clio on your desk or on your shelf. I'm in New York, but I feel like Nashville is a home away from home for me, and I love spending time there. I love the music scene, and it's great to hear what Chris and Butch and Lindsay are doing, and the community is doing through this really difficult time. I happen to think Butch and his team were part of a Clio Music Award-winning work in 2018 for a project called It All Begins with a Song. It was a remarkable piece of work. You can see those winners on the clios.com website. But that too, I think, just reiterated the importance of music and songwriters and musicians in the Nashville community. It's my privilege now to pass it on. I'm really looking forward to this next session. Thank you to our panelists, Brian and John and Stephen. They're going to be introduced shortly, but it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the panel, Dave Brooks. Dave's Senior Director for Live and Touring at Billboard. He also founded Amplify Media, which was acquired by Billboard in 2018, I believe. We're really privileged to have Dave join us, as well as our esteemed panelists, to talk about the Save Our Stages program. I watched a lot of it this weekend. It was fantastic. Kudos. So, Dave, I'm going to pass it to you, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Can you guys, can everybody hear me, see me? Today I'm excited to bring the second part of our panel. NIVA and YouTube present Save Our Stages, and we have a video to kick us off from Save Our Stages from the anthem. So let's go ahead and roll that.
Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage, but not every stage can raise you up high off the ground, or bring you down all the way to your knees, or take you in like you've always belonged. All the world's a stage, but not every stage is part of our history. part of our culture, part of our community. All the world's a stage, but there are some stages that feel like the whole world.
Wow, that was awesome video. I am feeling pumped just watching it. So thank you to thanks for everyone for joining us today, and also I just want to say what a tough act to follow with Jessica, Butch, Chris, and Lindsay. That was a great panel, you guys, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our panel. I'm gonna see if I can cue my view here so I can see everybody. For some reason, I don't see everyone, but I will hopefully find a way to. Let's go ahead and start with our first panelist is Brian Anderson. He's a global product lead of music at YouTube. And here we go. Now I see everybody. I'm gonna read some shortened bios here. So, Brian leads the global music go-to-market and live music sponsorship at YouTube, including SOS Fest, Coachella, Global Citizen, Fuji Rock, and many others, which bring incredible performances and fresh new viewing experiences to millions of music lovers around the world. Next, we have John Petruccelli. He is the CEO and the founder of Bulldog DM, the world's most experienced live streaming company for premium content. Bulldog DM helps brands, agencies, content owners, and platforms deliver impactful live stream engagements and connects today's digitally engaged consumer to the world's best live content. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Steven Sternshine, NIVA treasurer, executive producer of SOS Fest, and I will say Austin impresario. Steve's a longtime friend of mine, and he founded Her Presents in 2010, which has grown to be one of the largest independent promoters in Texas. He has served as managing partner there for nearly a decade. Steve co-founded Prison FM in 2017, and he also has been involved with NIVA since the onset of the pandemic, first founding Banding Together, which delivered $200,000 in direct relief to artists, production, hospitality workers in Austin, Texas. And that led Steve to co-founding the National Independent Venue Association, which now represents over 2,800 venues around the country. Well, that was a mouthful, but we made it through the introduction. Please pardon the fan. I hope it's not distracting. It's just hot in here right now. So let's just start off by before we talk about this awesome series over the weekend, State of Our Stages on YouTube for 3 days. Let's just talk about kind of how this idea came together. How NIVA had been formed, and obviously in the live music business, it's a better way to raise awareness and money than putting on a show. So, Steve, why don't you start us off and just kind of tell us about how this all came to be?
Sure. So I think it was the beginning of May when I first started speaking with YouTube. I think the Troubadour had just announced that it was going to be closing its doors. And so we had been successful in raising a small amount of money to begin our advocacy effort in Washington and the Save Our Stages campaign. And my task within the organization was to find other financial resources to keep us fighting for relief, since most of our members, and in fact, all of our members couldn't pay dues the way a normal business association would, operate. So the natural first place that we went were ecosystem partners, but all those folks were in trouble too, and couldn't help too much. So we started to think about where we could provide value and who would have an interest in working with us, in creating a program like this. And the timing, of the conversations with Lior and his team, if we can all think back to when PPP first was announced and the mistakes that were made initially. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, and we had this great conversation that really started with, well, we have a really big problem. It's $1 billion problem. It's more than $1 billion problem. So anything that we do to try and address it has to have that kind of scale. And it really came down to YouTube's incredible reach and connection and relationship with global brands. That was the kind of starting point of, okay, so if we're going to do something massive, YouTube is the obvious partner for us to do that. And then we started diving into how to pull off a massive moment, like the moment that we just had, to both spread the message of our advocacy campaign and begin to offer a solution that would enable our members to participate in a commercial program that has the ability to provide some kind of relief directly as well. So I think, it's important to mention that there's none of the opportunity, like the opportunities that arise out of live streaming for venues, they really touch. It's like throwing a pebble into a pool, right? So you create a show. For us, that's what we do, but that also means we reemploy workers. It means we're able to re-engage with our audiences, and it means that we're able to start looking forward as opposed to looking around and seeing where to go. So incredibly meaningful for us to be able to go around to our teams after months of work and say, hey, we've got a show, and we're gonna use the tools that we have to send as big a message as we can out there. And I'm happy to report that we've been resoundingly successful in doing that. And to Chris's point, the problem is so large that one streaming program is not going to do it. What we need to do is over the next 6 to 12 months, grow this from the seed that it is into a forest, so to speak.
I like that analogy. The Save Our Stages festival so far. Do you want to say how much you've raised for NIVA?
Yeah, we've at this point we've raised just about $2 million, and
wow.
That's a pretty good first weekend. Obviously, it's a multi-month program, and the cool thing about it is again, using the seed analogy, every piece of content that was produced for the festival is living on within the artist ecosystem and NIVA's ecosystem in a way that's going to continue to provide financial support. But again, and so as Chris mentioned earlier, like our initial goal is to hit $14 million because that's what we need to send out this first round of emergency relief through our need-based fund. And that again is just a 3-month period. And then we got another 3 months, another 3 months after that. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Well, I want to ask a bit more.
Oh, and we also, I'm sorry, Dave.
Go ahead.
Another good statistic. I think we're north of 3 million viewers on the content.
Wow, that's awesome. I was one of them, and I really enjoyed the Save Our Stages, all 3 days of showcases, and I would say my favorite performance was Miley Cyrus at the she was the Whiskey. I also want to say Trooper, playing her new song and Zombies by Cranberries, which she crushed. That's a hard song. She crushed it. John, give us an idea. I mean, of as a production company and producer and all the behind the scenes work for this 3-day festival that took place at multiple venues around the country. Give us an idea of kind of like the scale of Save Our Stages Fest and the task, of what it took to coordinate all these shows.
Yeah, it was, I would say, fairly significant. I've been in the live streaming space for 20 years now, and I've never seen a project like this that included, 25 different artists performing, or 35 artists performing it across, 25 stages around the country. So to pull that off, we largely acted as the plumbing that supported both YouTube and NIVA. And I think, it should be noted that those two organizations, moved, heaven and earth to make this happen. And our job was to go in and execute underneath kind of that scope. And, we had to figure out where the talent would be, what were the safety protocols. And again, both organizations provided that for the crews and for the artists to perform there. But, we looked at this as, this is a very different experience, right? You have bands supporting just a super passionate, very important cause. And, to us, we took it as, I'd say, a serious experience to represent, kind of the ethos of what we're trying to achieve. But, moreover, to do this in just historic, cherished stages, but with nobody in the room was kind of intriguing, right? Because usually you're playing off what's happening in the room in the audience, and you have to go set camera positions, based on all of those factors. So it became kind of a different experience and a different journey. But I also believe that, knowing a platform like YouTube is involved, you're getting, the end result, I think, spoke for itself. You've got beautifully produced shows, but also I think the audio with, stereo audio to really represent the moment. And, and further to that, just I would say the things that the artists were saying about how these venues were so important to them, I think was equally as important as the actual performances. And I think that end result of those 3 days, those multiple hours, really spoke to the success and the achievement here. And even, Reggie Watts hosting and talking about things that were happening in the schedule and, and to support these causes, again, was really reflected in that output. And the beauty of this, as Steve points out, is, this is just the beginning, and this content's going to live on for some time, and fans can really see that call to action, respond, and donate to this, just super important cause.
Brent, I want to ask you, how did when YouTube, came into this project? I mean, how did you think? How did you think about it as a company of, and how did you make decisions on how to deliver some of the streams and where they would live afterwards? Like, for example, a lot of the streams are living on the artist channels, right, as opposed to kind of a central hub, and that's allowing the artists as well to participate in kind of some of the upside of this of SOS Fest. I mean, what was that conversation thought process like?
Yeah, no, Dave, that's right. I mean, for YouTube, live music is really at our core. We've been doing large live music festivals and concerts for a number of years. We knew that this was a cause that we absolutely had to get behind. And because it was something that everyone believed in, we had lots of folks from lots of departments who sort of stood up and volunteered their time and energy and wanted to play a part in this. And we knew that because it was so special, we could really innovate in a lot of different ways and do things that we had never done before. And the point that you're making is that, typically when we program a live festival like this, we drive everyone to a single destination. The shows happen throughout the day. In this case, though, we wanted to do two things. And so we put the live streams on the individual artist channels, which had a strong promotional element, meaning that when Miley Cyrus went live, all of Miley's subscribers were hit with a notification that said, click here to watch her live. So there was a very cool discovery component to that. The other piece is that, you know, we brought on Anheuser-Busch as the sponsor, and they ran pre-roll ads against the live stream and all of the VOD. And there's a premium CPM attached to those ads. And so by putting the content itself on the artist channels, it was a more direct path for those premium ad rates to find its way to the content owners. So that was one of the exciting things we did. We had you know, a link on the google.com homepage, which, you know, doesn't happen very often. We redid the carousel on /music to make it very easy for people to find the live streams and the VOD clips. And so because it was such a special event and teams were so enthusiastic, we really moved mountains to create an experience that had never been done before.
I'm just curious, from a technical standpoint, you know, how does it compare to doing a traditional live festival, right? Because you have production happening all over the country and shows happening. I mean, the level of coordination must be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can touch on it quickly from the YouTube side, but John, you're better to speak to it than me. I mean, from our side, you know, one of the things that YouTube brought to the table here was an amazing team of project managers who were sort of keeping the train on tracks. We have a world-class, you know, tech live solutions team who worked, you know, hand in hand with John and Bulldog to sort of make this happen. And again, we were really, you know, testing out all kinds of new stuff. So one of the other things that was cool about this is because of the fact that this was, you know, 30-something distributed streams and all over the place, we leveraged a new technology called Red Carpet, which linked them all together. So we had one linear stream that lived on the NIVA channel, and then all of the individual streams that lived on all the different artist channels. So from a user experience perspective, it was very challenging in terms of production and delivering something that felt seamless. But I think the teams really, you know, rose to the occasion and created something very special. But John, you can speak to the
and John, I want to add one layer on top of that. You know, besides obviously producing in multiple locations, you also had a COVID safety, I mean, element. You know, can you speak to that as well? I mean, how did the multi-location aspect and the COVID safety aspect kind of present new challenges for you, and how did you think about it and tackle it?
I can probably speak to that most directly. The starting point for our safety protocols was a deep analysis of all of the expert advice and everything that was out there in the universe. At the NIVA level, we have a reopening committee that spent probably hundreds of hours collectively reviewing all those materials. We then spent a number of weeks working directly with Google's, the various safety experts within Google's organization, which are numerous, to develop a master plan for safety. And then what we did was trained and deployed safety officers at each location that we were shooting, alongside a national testing partner that was able to provide a variety of different solutions depending on the need. So sometimes we had multi-day shoots where artists were rehearsing and then performing. Sometimes we had, you know, single-day shoots. There's so many different ways that you know, that things came together, but essentially having this great team of folks and you know, the resources to make sure that literally every I and T was dotted and every person was tested before they walked into this operation. That's how we did it.
Masked up the whole time unless you were playing?
Yeah, so I think the way that when we talk, there really is two groups of people on site. There's the group of production personnel and then a group of artist folks, or the artist team. And so our goal with these, with the protocols was really to completely separate those two teams, which are often from different locations, from each other entirely. So for an artist coming to perform in one of these shows was basically like going from one room in their house to another, where nobody else had been there. It was completely sanitized and clean, and then they're separated from the production staff by a significant amount of space. So masks on all the time, and the production staff and the artists, kind of depending on if they had to sing or not, made the choice of whether to be masked up. But I'm happy to report that we had 100% effective safety operation.
That's great. John, tell us about shooting this, mixing, delivering this thing live. What was involved, and how does that compare to your normal festival?
Very different, right? Unlike any experience we've ever been associated with. And the way we approached this was we started to see, the outreach that NIVA and YouTube were doing to the bands and the talent, and then started to kind of almost build an execution / production matrix based on where the bands were and what NIVA venues they were going to perform at. And to really scale this and pull this off logistically, we kind of centered everything in Austin, knowing we could be anywhere in the country in a half a day or a day's notice, but then also had production resources in hubs like New York and Chicago and LA and San Francisco. And then it was kind of a call to action. We kind of had been building this forward. We really needed the best live music production people in the country, and we needed them on literally on a moment's notice. And we kind of saw the same kind of rallying cry that the bands had and the artists had and the promoters and even YouTube. We saw that with the production community as well. And we were able to deliver and execute to, obviously to the band's liking as well. And we've worked with almost every of these artists in our careers, either at festivals or doing concerts in general, or with our brand partners. So we're pretty keen on, how do we get this just right, giving the sensitivity, of the moment. But I think the big thing for the viewer here is, the greatest thing in the world, if you're a music fan, is an underplay, right? It's to get a great, huge, established artist performing in an intimate, small venue, not to mention a venue where they began their career, and then to hear them talk about how important it was for them in their formative years to be in venues like the stage they were on, but also in other cities as they traveled. And so, logistically for us, a very different world, but fortunately, the importance of this movement resonated with everybody involved in the project. And again, I think the output really speaks to that passion and that the level of significance and importance that went into the production and the show overall.
I saw a comment earlier, just really quick, sorry Dave, about
okay.
We should help stagehands. I think it's important to add that part of the production program here was re-employing many of venue staff directly, in addition to the video crews that John's bringing in. And so not only were we able to provide that work, we also trained them on how to continue to be able to work within, video production and AV production in the future.
So let's talk about where they live now. And how long and how they're being used now. Brian, can we fans still watch the performances?
Yeah, absolutely. So video on demand will live through the rest of the year or perhaps beyond that point. One of the great things about YouTube being the platform in this case is that we have incredible scale, incredible global reach. And so there are people all around the world who are discovering and enjoying all of these amazing performances. And then the other piece here is that, the watch pages themselves have a donation button. And so the VOD will live on for the foreseeable future. And during that time, as people are discovering these amazing performances, it's very easy for them to click the button and continue to donate to the cause. And so we really look at last weekend as, sort of a kickoff, if you will. The VOD will continue to sort of grow and people will enjoy it. And we're looking forward to, future partnerships.
That's interesting, right? I mean, because I know there's not a ton of details yet, but I mean, this is really just the beginning of what's possible, a partnership between the two organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more to come, and another exciting component here is that, you know, the technology that has been installed in all of these amazing venues is really allowing folks to create all kinds of cool content, even independently. And so there's definitely an aspect of, you know, bringing the technology in, teaching folks how to use it, providing them with a platform to distribute it, and then allowing people to, you know, be part of big programs that we all work on together, or independently creating amazing live music content that people can enjoy when they're not able to go to shows in person.
So Steve, you know, you've raised you know, $2 million. You have the contribution from Anheuser-Busch. You have past donations. How is this money allocated to venues and those in need within NIVA, and how are those decisions made?
That's a great question. So our emergency relief fund is administered by a very reputable nonprofit called the Giving Back Fund. They've been around for about 30 years. They've executed dozens of emergency relief funds during the COVID era. And we worked really closely with the executives and the team over at Giving Back to set up a need-based program that's independently you know, administered. So what we did was essentially the criteria in the Save Our Stages Act is also the criteria for receiving a grant from this fund. And if, just to simplify it, the priorities are, you know, financial need, minority ownership and diversity, equality, inclusion, community impact, paying artists and staff fairly, and as long as you're doing all those things, you know, that those are the criteria for receiving a grant from the fund. And the first round of grants, we've kind of closed we had a month-long application period, and the initial grants are going to be up to $25,000. And then as we raise more funds, we'll continue to do you know, multiple rounds of granting.
I'm going to ask one of the questions. I'm going to ask. You guys are going to answer some of the questions here. We're getting a bunch coming in. First one, how from Amy Pruitt. I hope I pronounced it right. Here's kind of a wonky one. How has licensing changed now that music is being performed on demand instead of live? Are more sync licenses required? I don't know. Who'd like to answer that one, or just the idea of licensing in general? I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I can probably answer that best in the context of, so there is live to tape and live are treated the same from a licensing perspective, in that a synchronization license is not required. For VOD performances, there is a synchronization license required. And, you know, a big part of, like, you know, behind the curtain, what we've been doing, or what we've been, you know, what we figured out for SOS Fest was, you know, a kind of transparent and clean way of interfacing with all of the publishers and record labels, you know, that have an interest in these artists' performances and master recording rights, to allow us to do what we're doing. And in any future, absolutely one of the biggest differences between traditional live performance and the traditional model is the necessity to include clearances as a big piece of the work that's done. But I think that while there isn't a standard that has been set, I do see, you know, from the conversations that we've had, and understand, you know, essentially that every one of the major companies have policies about that they've established regarding these kinds of you know, content programs, and it's essentially the legal piece hasn't changed, but the industry standard practice has changed slightly to accommodate for the increase in live stream and live content.
All right, well, thank you for for tackling that and giving a pretty in-depth answer. I'm going to ask another one. Maybe this might be a little lighter, from Dana Lyons, who is very passionate about the subject, and she wants to know how she can get involved in working or volunteering with NIVA. Right? There's plenty of ways to give. What about that kind of human touch? Are there volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, so there, if you go onto our website, nivaassociates.org, there is a contact form that you can fill out with your interest and experience and available time. And as we have opportunities or have a need, we will contact you to talk about it.
Got it. Perfect. I have a question. So John, now we're in this COVID era. Are you finding? I mean, as a person who streams concerts, are you doing more now, or how's your business been impacted?
Yeah, we're in a very interesting time, and live streaming has been around literally for 2 decades, and it's only started to come to prominence 2 or 3, 4 years ago. And now, as of March, it's just flat out exploded, right? You've seen massive adoption on all the major social platforms. There's been an influx of startups and new companies stepping into the space. And I think we're at an interesting time, for a couple of reasons. One, now everybody walking this earth has live streamed something, whether it's a child doing, distance learning, or a grandparent involved in a family Zoom session, or you watch SOS Fest or a versus battle on Instagram. So there's been, I think, a widespread user adoption on a global basis. And in parallel, I think we're seeing something really interesting. All-time low ratings for things like the World Series and even some NFL teams. And that says to us, the audience wants access to music performances, and no matter any way they can get them. And I think the music industry has responded. Early on in the pandemic, it was, turning your phone on and doing a broadcast on your Instagram account. And now that's completely changed. And I think SOS is evidence of that. You had just beautiful performances on these stages in HD video and stereo audio. And I think it becomes an interesting point, especially for brand marketers, right? They're under, they get all kinds of challenges: cord cutting, ad blocking, brand safety challenges left and right. And what live streaming offers, and I think most importantly from NIVA stages, is a solution to those brand marketers. They can now connect with an audience in real time, get extended watch time. If you look at how Bud Light Seltzer was just professionally and intimately and authentically integrated into this experience, I mean, it's going to be a huge success for them as a brand marketer. But also, I think the audience realizes, oh, here's a brand that actually cares, and that's important to me. And I think going forward, this is a huge moment for Madison Ave to say, all the things I want to do in music, I can go to this entity and I can do it there, and I can have shows and performances, even experiential. You saw some, I think, killer interstitial components of this show. Slash's 1 or 2 minute conversation about his growing up next to the Troubadour. I think what kicked off this session, that video, that tribute narrated by Neil Young. I had friends tell me they just saw that video and they made a donation, right? All the amazing performances aside. So I think it's so the live streaming business is just, it's no question has exploded. And I think the next iteration is you're going to see brand traditional dollars that kind of have lost their efficacy in traditional marketing come into this arena. And ideally, I think the biggest opportunity today, I think, for brand marketers is to do this, through NIVA, because you're also making an important contribution. You're preserving, which really, in our minds, if there's no independent music venues, that begs, is there going to be a music industry, or a music industry that everybody can participate and enjoy?
Well, right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, But I want to ask you though first, I want to ask you, and anybody can answer this too. I mean, what's the long play? What happens long term with live streaming? I mean, once we return to normal, whatever that means. I mean, what's the future for live streaming in a hopefully post-COVID world?
I believe that, again, this kind of learned behavior. I think the artist community now is completely comfortable with it, right? They've been performing in their living rooms and had their husband or their wife walk through the set, or their dog. And so historically, anybody that held back from it, there's really, now it's the audience wants that authentic. And we've seen some great data, especially younger consumers. They want to see a real, authentic experience. So I believe when we are back in fully ticketed experiences, live streaming is going to be the logical amplification tool for those shows. So yeah, if I'm in LA and I want to see this killer show at the Parish, that's going to be available, whether it's brought to me by Samsung or I have to pay more than virtual. I think that's going to be of the market, but it also brings media dollars in virtual ticket sales to the live music industry. So it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, I would just say from the YouTube side, we're seeing all of those same trends. So music video streaming, both live and on demand, are reaching all-time highs. Radio time is down, traditional streaming time is down, no commutes, people have less time alone at the gym, typical sort of use cases where they would put their headphones in and listen to music. But there are a lot more people who are, obviously at home, and they're consuming both live and VOD music across all of their different screens. We're seeing incredible sort of growth in the living room. We're seeing incredible growth on both mobile and desktop. And really, to John's point, it's an amazing opportunity for advertisers who are struggling to figure out how to reach their audiences and how to speak to music lovers. Whereas they used to have their experiential budgets to spend on the ground at festivals and concerts and things, those advertisers are now looking for ways to invest those dollars to create stuff that lives virtually online. And instead of reaching people in the actual venues, they're looking to reach people in clever and subtle and authentic ways while they are consuming music content sitting in their living room. So it's really an amazing opportunity. And I know similar to John, working in this space for a very long time, it really feels like an inflection point, and we're all just so excited about the future.
Stephen, how do you view it as an independent venue owner and promoter?
I would echo what John and Brian mentioned in terms of a trend towards live streaming that's not going away anytime soon. I think that the most concrete example of the future, we're in Austin in the process of reopening one of our rooms outside, socially distanced, for very limited live concerts. We're not going to be able to, everybody who wants to see that show is not going to get to see it. So having live streaming as an alternative to showing up in person is really important. But as we get back to full capacity and a full calendar of events, we believe that we can start to sell membership type subscriptions where you purchase a ticket and then you have access to exclusive streams for the month. There's a number of different ways that we can kind of, as promoters, expand our engagement with our audience through a live streaming program that offers, like we said, additional revenue opportunities for both the independent rooms and the people that produce the events, as well as the artists that are involved with them. So I only see the trend, increasing and getting to be more of a, important piece of the revenue streams that we look at when we're talking about how artists are able to monetize their art.
I mean, we're even seeing meet and greets
virtual, right?
Yeah, virtually, right? Through streaming. And I'm having a meet and greet, in-person meet and greet with my very nervous dog right now. So
Yes, we'd all like to meet him.
Well, this is Bandit.
Hey, Bandit.
Someone's mowing the lawn across the street, and that's a big issue for him. So, have you done any virtual meet and greets, and what has that been like?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
We have done a few. There are a number of different folks who are technologically powering those things, but by and large, the response that I've gotten from the artists that we work with is like, why would we ever go back to standing in a room awkwardly with a bunch of people when we can just put a minute clock on a screen and like stare at our phone and say hi and take a selfie. It really creates much more efficiency in getting to like the deliverable in that situation without creating an uncomfortable situation for the artist. So I definitely think that trend is going to continue.
What about Anjali? One of our questions asked, what is the future? What's going on with the legislation that you have spoken of, the SOS bill?
Well, I think
I was gonna say that's a big part. That was a big part of the advocacy during the show, during the SOS.
Look, it's difficult to discuss this at this point because I think that from one perspective, what NIVA and our advocacy team has been able to pull off in the short time that we've been around is, as big of a miracle as us being able to produce, a multi-day festival with, dozens of artists and venues participating at the same time. But despite all of those efforts, there's identity politics and electoral politics that kind of have left all of us, kind of in the lurch, not just music, not just independent music venues and the folks around there, but, the American people. So we feel we have over 120 co-sponsors on our legislation, which is a massive number. And every indication is that we're, kind of regardless of, I think at the end, I think there's a very good chance that the legislation will go through in some form or another. But the real problem is time, because you heard from Chris Cobb earlier, there are venues that, had weeks to live or months to live. We projected 90% of our members would be gone by around this time. And the only reason that hasn't happened as significantly is because of the advocacy effort and the funds that we're raising and the support of our local communities. But the threat is very real. In another 6 months is going to mean another, hundreds of venues are going to close if we aren't able to provide a bridge, a lifeline. And so this program and programs like it, and particularly, the Emergency Relief Fund is a bridge to get us to the point where this legislation finally passes the way it should.
Right, and I understand that you're kind of limited what you can say as this legislation works its way through the process. But I do want to commend. I want to commend NIVA for. Not only for the work it's done so far, and not only co-authoring the bill with Amy Klobuchar and John Cornyn, but having it endorsed by so many people. And now, of course, we nervously sit and hope and wait. Right? It's always the most difficult part of a democracy and being involved in something like this. But NIVA has also brought together all these independent promoters who you've never really seen cooperate in this way.
Except for a panel, let's say Billboard touring conference or something like that.
Exactly. we don't have 2,800 seats, unfortunately, to fit everybody. But what is there? What do you see for the future of NIVA? Maybe beyond once we pass this.
Yeah, that's also a great question. So our NIVA, the lobbying association, has a very simple and clear mission statement, to fight on behalf of independent promoters at the federal level for relief and aid. We've recently founded a companion organization called the NIVA Foundation. And I believe if the press release hasn't gone out yet, it's about to go out. The mission statement for that organization is to protect and promote a competitive, transparent marketplace, serving a diverse, inclusive community for the benefit of artists, fans, and creators. So the future of NIVA is to be a moat and a sentinel protecting the independence, diversity, and authenticity of our artist development community for everyone. And we can do that by, through professional development, through educational programs, through a continued advocacy effort on issues outside of emergency relief from, there are all sorts of different ways that I think that we're planning to help as much as we can to protect and, really be in a position, like I thought Chris said it really well, like we're here to serve. We serve artists, we serve our communities, we serve the fans and the music lovers who discover those artists in our rooms. And, that our mission is to protect and preserve that, our ability to continue to serve.
All this kind of this final question for everybody here. I mean, what was the one thing I think that you surprised you or that you learned participating in Save Our Stages Festival, and how do you plan to apply that in the future? We'll go ahead and start with Brian.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think we had a lot of learnings around best way to incorporate sponsors into programming like this. And we really pushed, well beyond, pre-roll and mid-roll ads. I think John touched on some of these points a little bit earlier, but there were lots of subtle integrations where, in the venue intro films, you would see, cuts of Bud Light Seltzer signs or Bud Light Seltzer cans. The hosted segments with Reggie, there was, some product placement there, and some very thoughtful kind of one-liners where he was calling out the brand and thanking the brand. And so I think what we were really encouraged by is, sort of true partnership in a brand and from a brand perspective, and being able to create an experience where advertisers are sort of getting what they need in terms of exposure and brand recall and recognition, but still providing something that feels very clean and natural to the users, and really promotes a lot of viewership in that sense. So I think we'll take a lot of the sort of integration learnings onto future programs.
Don, want to say what you learned and what takeaways?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway here is coming into this project. It was a Herculean, massive project with a lot of different kind of tentacles to it. And what I learned was these two organizations coming together can pull off something this shining and this compelling. And what I then deduce is there's a big opportunity again for brands to enter into this ecosystem. Just, really tremendous success, knowing access to these venues, these stages, the talent, the ability to create the interstitials that even, partner with a YouTube influencer maybe to host these performances as well. And I just think that to me was, at first, is this going to be feasible and possible given the breadth of performers and all the different stages that they're on, and also knowing, we're working with, just an association that's been under siege really since the beginning of the pandemic. And to see what was possible as a result to me was super noteworthy. And I think my big takeaway too from just the show itself was, I just think the Lumineers performance that closed the show and what the band had to say between songs about how important these venues were. And, I think Wesley, the singer, mentioned he had his wedding reception in the Boulder Theater. And that, so these venues became almost like family to them. And, he also told this kind of funny story, how his wife's cousin fell asleep in the balcony, and, the cleaning lady, again, the staff member at the venue, had to come in and wake the cousin up in the morning, after the wedding. But I think that whole set had kind of cool little stories. And, this is a pretty successful A-list multi-platinum band, but it was never lost upon them how important these stages were. So that's kind of my takeaway there.
All right, I'm last. I think I'll echo. I think every time I heard one of the artists that I grew up listening to and loving, and that ended up, with me becoming, a music person, hearing them talk about NIVA, just saying the word NIVA and saying that that saving stages was important. It just like hit me every single time. And I think that everybody in our community, in the NIVA organization needed to hear that spoken aloud in front of all of those people, because it's been, you hear it in Chris's voice, we're all tired and just like depleted from fighting. And this event gave us, it filled up the gas tank in more ways than one for us to keep going. So I guess that's my takeaway, is that I think for a long time we felt like we didn't have a voice, we weren't able to do what we normally do to, create connection between people and to provide an opportunity for artists to speak to their audiences. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we can still do that. We can still, create and send messages that are received all over the world. And it takes a little help from our friends. But I think that's the most important thing, is just knowing that we have a way to continue to raise our voices louder, and to get more and more people involved in helping to take us through to the other side of this. And the other thing that I've learned is that we need a new KPI, which is number of Google Chat minutes per minute of content created. And I think that if we start monitoring that number, we're going to get more and more efficient at providing those moments for ourselves. Because man, that's been the most wild thing about this, is just being on calls with people that we've never met. I think everybody's kind of having that experience, but particularly here, for the past 6 months, there's hundreds of people around the country that I can't wait to go meet in person at some point and have, a hug and a high five and maybe a Bud Light seltzer, right?
Bud Light seltzer, yeah.
Exactly. Well, we guys, unfortunately, we're out of time. But I want to thank John, Brian, and Steven for being on today's panel. I also want to thank Brand Summit 2020 for having us. And let's save live music, and let's save independent venues and keep supporting NIVA.